diamonds. I like stunning, I like shining. I like $1 million deals. Where's my pen? Bitch, I'm signing. I like those Balenciagas, the ones that look like socks. I like going to the Tula. I put rocks all in my watch. I like texts from my exes when they want a second chance. I like proving niggas wrong. I do what they say I can't. They call me Cardi, Cardi, banging body, spicy mommy, hot tamale, hotter than a Somali. Virgo, Ferrari, hop up the stoop, jump in the coupe, big dip on top of the roof, flexing on bitches as hard as I can, eating halal, driving a lamb. So that bitch, I'm sorry though. Got my coins like Mario. Yeah, they call me Cardi B. I run this shit like cardio. I'm in district in the chain. Certified, you know I'm gang.
Good evening. Welcome to San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. My name is Harry, and of course Scott's here with us. And Todd mentioned that he may be coming in a little bit later, but we're not going to hold the show for him. But he may be stopping by, so at some point we may have a third join us. If not, Scott and Todd and I, have a couple of things to talk about. Sorry for missing the show last week. Unfortunately, life got in the way for both of us. And so, Scott, did we miss anything?
Yeah, just a few things, huh? We kind of nailed it, I guess, or you kind of nailed it on our last episode about how we knew these next couple of weeks are going to be busy just because lack of time left for the upcoming season, and they sure did cram in a lot of news in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, what I thought was funny, and we didn't have a show, and also Texas Soccer Radio didn't have a show, and of course, probably the biggest story for San Antonio fans is Billy Forbes is coming back, and unfortunately, nobody really covered it on our side. Just for that. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, the discussions a week later as opposed to that same day, because I know for me the takes are probably a little bit calmer now since then, because it's not there's so much other information, man. I was fired up, ready to go, last week with, the Billy Forbes hot or cold takes, depending on which side of the aisle you're on.
Well, let me ask you on that, because maybe I just, I've been a little busy, so maybe I just missed it. I mean, were people upset about Billy coming back?
No, the fan base wasn't, but I know you and I probably leaned not to have him back. And I know, Larry and Kyle on Texas Soccer Radio, Larry was pretty clear about I guess the question is why, and that's the thing is why come back at this point, especially with the signings that we've got. And that'll probably be where we kind of get into discussions, this week and more as preseason, since camp has already kicked off, but where he actually fits in and what does that mean for the lineup. So I think that was the biggest question is, and I'll give it up to Royce. He mentioned that, Billy is our new Omar, with the exception that he can shoot a little bit better, with that. And I actually think that's actually kind of true. If you look at it along those lines, we lost Omar, who, if we're honest, the ball kind of stopped with him. Mm-hmm. But I think Billy's a little bit better finisher. Now, I don't know if he's quite as quick as Omar, but that would be kind of interesting to see, in a one-to-one race. But that'll be for down the show here. So typically we start off with high schools, and I know I've caught 5 matches in the last 2 weeks. What about you?
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've been all over the place, dude. I've had some stuff going on here recently with work and stuff like that. And my wife is on a new job with a new schedule now, where sometimes she works till 7 p.m. Some nights or some weeks she gets off at 6 p.m. So this last week was kind of her late shift and everything. So I got to play daddy daycare here at the house for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, it's always kind of nice. But tell us a little bit about some of the games that you got out there and see, and then we'll get into some of the standings and some of the scores here from this past weekend.
Yeah, so this past weekend, I went out and caught Smith and Valley and Schertz Clemens. I happened to sit next to Chris in 114, whose son is the starting goalkeeper for Schertz Clemens, and so just to go out and support the fellow season ticket member, but also catch some high school action. neither one of these teams, when we look at the standings, are top, and I think if they make the playoffs, I don't see a deep run, for either one of them. But it was kind of good to get, go over to, to me, New Braunfels, from my side of town over to there, it felt like. Schertz Clemens beat Smith and Valley 4-0. To me, the big thing, and I really kind of wish Schertz Clemens would have put the highlight out, is there was a free kick from 65 yards away. Right at the end of the first half, that it was just beautiful. It almost reminded me of the Scorpions years where we called him Z, that he had a really long free kick like that, where it was on frame. It was beautiful. You couldn't, it was one of those, you had to be there to see it type moments for that there. But so it was kind of good to be able to support a fellow season ticket member and his kids out playing high school soccer. But the ones that kind of stood out to me was a couple weeks earlier, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. I went out and saw over at Gustafson's soccer fields 1 and 2, where you can pay to get in and you can kind of watch both games. So the first games was the Brennan girls going against Jay, which was ended up being 2-0 for Brennan. But basically they got goals, like about a 3-4 minutes, spot between them. Other than that, it was a very even game. I was watching the O'Connor boys and the Warren boys. Number 13, I forget his name here, but he scored the goal. But to me, the outstanding thought from that takeaway from that game was just how well both of the goalkeepers were, especially the Warren goalkeeper. And I know on Twitter they have a Warren soccer. Or I think last week they showed a highlight save of his, and that was kind of back to back that he had. The other two games, the afternoon games or the late games, the girls' soccer was O'Connor, and they're just, to me, they're on a completely different level, because Warren was one of the top teams in NISD, and O'Connor just rolled them. It was 3-0, and it was just, they were faster, they were quicker, and it was just, to me, it was just a different level. That they played at. And then, probably the most exciting game was Jay and Brennan, which was a 3-2, thriller. Jay was up 2-0, Brennan came back to tie it, and then Jay ended up getting a late winner at the end, which, if you're looking at the standings, the surprise leader in the 28-6A is Jay. Overall, they're 7-1 and 4-0 in conference play, at this point here. So, to me, just kind of being able to catch that. And in the girls' side on 28A, you got Clark, that's in first place, 5-0 in district. However, I do think O'Connor, might be the best team overall. Just when you look at their records, they're 4-1. Those two have not faced yet. But the girls' side is really stacked, where you got Clark at 5-0, O'Connor, Brandeis, and Warren, both at 4-1, and Warren, following up at 3-1. So. Whereas on the boys' side, Jay's got 4-0, Brandeis is 3-0-2, and then you got Marshall, Marshall at 3-1-1, and Warren at 2-1-1. So it's getting tight. I know it's kind of getting late in the season for that there. I know, our friend of the show, Mr. Abbott, the referee, at that time, because he actually happened to be referee of one of the games that we were at. So, yeah, I was like, well, what was odd is, and it was kind of cool because at the end of the O'Connor Warren game, there was a red card, and there really wasn't on a foul. It ended up being for verbal and stuff along those lines right at the end, where Warren was getting a little bit frustrated.
Sure.
I asked him, hey, do you happen to know? And, he kind of told me, the story behind it. But the other surprise team, which he mentioned, was Lee. They're, and Lee's dominating both the boys and the girls on 27-6A. They're up, according to the records, 8-2. They just started conference, so it's a little early to kind of determine, how well, the conference is compared to the north side, where, they've got a few more games.
Sure.
But both boys and girls on Lee are in first place in that division for that there.
Yeah, well, and I know I want to say, well, no, I shouldn't say that because I was looking at the schedule for this upcoming weekend, and I was looking at the wrong week because I did see that Jay matchup, and I've been wanting to go out there and watch Jay play. I got to see one of the last games that they won last season, and I want to say that was like the first time that they made the playoffs, made the state tournament in the history of the school. I know it was kind of a historic season for them last season, and their head coach is a really nice guy. So I'm glad to see them doing well this year again.
Yeah, like you said here, that's that game against Brennan it was action going both ways. You thought when Jay got up, 2-0, that that they had things pretty comfortable, but Brennan, to their credit, came back, and you thought it would end in a tie, but Jay kept pushing. And to be honest with you, I think if that game would have went another 5 minutes, it wouldn't have shocked me if Brennan would have tied it back up. But that's the game.
Yeah.
On that game it was all ebb and flow, and when Jay had it tilted, they were doing good, and to me the outstanding thing was, I took Ann and AJ out there, and they had a lot of fun, being out there, and like I said here, for me personally, where you can pay, for me $4 to get in, the kids $2 to get in, be able to watch 2 games, and they flip them, so you get to really watch, both boys and girls there. That was the thing when I went out to a game, in Schertz, is they had the JV and they had the JV play, and then they had the varsity play, which was kind of cool. And I was asking Chris, I was like, why don't they play the boys and girls and have the JVs play, at the other school, or however you want to do it, and not that way you could get more of a crowd, and you could see both of the varsities at the same time, as opposed to splitting them home and away that they had. So it's like, I know his wife's on the Clemens booster team, and I was like, hey, you might want to bring this up if you have any pull, because it works on the north side. Now I'm not going to say the parents, if you got a boy and not a girl, or vice versa, may not stay for both, but I thought it was pretty cool that especially for the Warren boys, they played early, you would see them come and support the the Warren girls later on, and same with O'Connor. You saw them both in the stands, supporting the
both teams.
Both teams, which to me is a good thing, and that's what high school's about. Is it's about performing for your school and supporting the other sports inside of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I was just looking at the schedule for NISD for this upcoming weekend, and it looks like on Friday evening you've got Taft versus Warren, Brandeis versus Holmes there at Ferris, and then Clark versus Brennan. So some good matchups. And then I know tonight was Jay and Warren playing. So that game started at 7. That should actually be wrapping up. We may see the result of that one come across our Twitter feed while we're doing the show. Yeah. So definitely going to get out there this weekend.
I know you were going to try to go see, what was it, the Central Catholic and Johnson game?
Yeah.
Did you ever make it out? Or?
So I ended up at the wrong stadium, actually. I ended up somehow at University of Incarnate Word that night, and that's when it was raining and it was dark. And I don't know how I ended up at Incarnate Word, if it was just the name of the stadium that I searched in. Maybe that's the name of like their basketball, but it was like their football stadium there at Incarnate Word. So I'm not real familiar with that area. You get me out there at night when it's raining and stuff, and I just got turned around.
No worries.
Yeah.
So moving on, UPSL. So something exciting for the UPSL Central Conference is Inocentes. FC is in the national finals. They beat the team, I want to say it was from Maryland, Germantown, this last weekend here. If you do follow them at Inocentes FC, they are doing a drive to try to generate some money to help get the team out there. Because it is going to be played in California, and CalFed is gonna be tough to beat. You know, they're heading to the NPSL Pro, you know, or whatever the league's going to be called. So they've got a really good team. I don't think they're undefeated, obviously, and I think I think their last game they beat the team from Colorado 9-0. So it'll be a challenge, but like I said here, it's a good old Texas versus California matchup, and you know, being in the state of Texas, you got to root for Texas. So through there, but. The other big news, which affects us locally, is UPS Central Conference finally came out with the spring breakdown. Do you want to go over that?
Yeah. So you know, we're gonna have some teams. A little bit of a realignment took place for the Central Conference Heart Division. Here, which were basically the San Antonio teams. So one of the biggest teams moving back into that. Obviously, it'll be Samba with them moving from the division that they were playing in. They're primarily against their Houston clubs from the South. Thank you. And so you're going to have the Runners. You're going to have Round Rock SC. You're going to have FC Waco. Obviously, Bernie Thunder, Samba, Coyotes FC, and then the FC Knights, who are out of Austin as well. Coyotes FC out of Brownsville, if I remember correctly.
No, they're actually out of Temple. And
Temple.
There's going to be another club to be announced. And me doing a little bit of research, because, you know, on the tweet, but that may, or Backcountry, pardon me, FC, but that may be changing here. So, you know, to me, it's a pretty even conference, because you got two teams in Temple. You got, you know, assuming that this is the to be announced club. Backcountry FC and Coyotes up in Temple. You got the Knights in Killeen, and then you got Waco, so you got that kind of northern side there. And then, you know, you got Samba and the Runners here in San Antonio, Bernie, and then Round Rock, you know, which would be kind of the southern part. So to me, I think you got a nice little well-rounded conference here. And I know, I know some of the clubs, you know, have moved around a little bit, and some, you know, went to the USL League Two. You know, I know Houston FC does that, where they'll play UPSL in the fall, and then in the spring, summer they'll play USL League Two action here. So I'm excited, you know, for, you know, to have Samba and Bernie and the Runners all together, and even Round Rock, because you know on social media they
good Austin team.
You know, a good team up there, and it's
they are.
If if you're a fan, if you're a supporter, you know, it's not it's what, a 90-minute drive or so to get up to there, depending on traffic. So it's something that's reasonable, and, you know, I like that. You know, it's, you know, really it's kind of that I-35, you know, heart, you know, and I think that's why they call it, right in the heart of Texas, where you're going to have some quality clubs right there. I know John may not, for Samba, I know he kind of wanted to stay in the South, just through there here. But I think once he gets in here, and especially where this is year 2 for most of them, or season 2, for most of the teams here, I think it is, and plus I think Samba has a better chance on making the playoffs here. You know, the competition may not be as high as the South, you know, if you want to say with Atletico Katy. But to me, making the playoffs and getting that shot to go for the national playoffs, you know, to me, you know, could be a huge builder for the organization. So,
yeah, I tell you what though. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of glad that they're back. You know, I think it's, like you said, it's going to build some fun rivalries for that conference. Obviously, the Runners, though, aren't going anywhere, you know, in terms of just being a competitive team. Bernie, you know, you expect them to get better, as you mentioned, this being their first season and everything. So, you know, I think that conference is going to be a difficult conference, too. And as we've kind of seen here the past couple of years, it seems like, you know, the ultimate test is going to be up there in Dallas-Fort Worth anyways, you know, if you really want to make it to that next level. So I think it'll be fun. I'm kind of glad. I'm hyped up. We got a comment here on our YouTube feed about the Corinthians changing their logo on Facebook. Currently not active, right? Yeah, currently not active Our understanding here at the roundtable, we were just talking about this before the show, is that there wouldn't be any additions to any San Antonio UPSL teams. That the current UPSL teams here in San Antonio do have kind of rights, so to speak, to the market. So don't really anticipate seeing them joining the UPSL, but it is kind of interesting the updating of all the social media so close to the announcement of the Athenians. What are your thoughts on that, Harry?
Yeah, I've I've heard rumors that they're going to be back as well, and I've heard rumors that they're going to be in the Gulf Coast Premier League, which you know, you know, I guess would be kind of similar to UPSL, but it's a little bit different. To me, I think they would be a good partner because right now there's Central Texas Lobos up in the Austin area, but the rest of them are more kind of Shreveport, Alexandria, more Louisiana style. So there's going to be a little bit more travel if they do go that direction. But it is my understanding that they at this time would not be able to go into UPSL now. Could that change? We'll see, because we do know that there was MAC FC. So at one point there were 3 teams. Now, like I said here, can San Antonio support 3 UPSL teams? That's going to be kind of the debate, and especially where next year or next season in the fall they're going to be having a second division come in. I'm wondering if that could open up avenues for them. To that, if you're going to have promotion and regulation, pro rel, how do you turn down teams? Like I said, I understand USL and PSL, MLS all have certain market things there, but if you're going to say you're a pro rel league, how do you close it off? I guess would be the question here for that, but that'll be interesting to see. I did retweet, and then they quickly took it down, so I wish I would have saved it. The logo, but I thought the logo was kind of nice. They changed the color of it, for here. So I do believe that there is smoke, and I do believe there is something, to it now. I don't have any connections with them, and of course, I don't believe they've reached out to us at all. For that, but if they do want to reach out, of course, we'll give them a platform just like we do any other San Antonio soccer team. If they have any messages to get out.
Absolutely, yeah. And looking at some of the teams there in the GCPL, I do see some of the same teams like the Rafters and some of those Louisiana teams that Pete would have played against in the WPSL. So I'm sure he knows some owners in that league, and probably got some pretty good insight into just overall, how it operates. But it's an interesting topic that you bring up, though. Can San Antonio support 3, semi-pro or amateur teams along with, San Antonio FC? Because, it's basically kind of what we have right now in the ladies game, which, is a little bit interesting because I don't even think we announced that, but and maybe we have had a show since then. But obviously with the return of the Athenians, we're now going to have 2 WPSL teams, a UWL team, and then a UPSLW team here in San Antonio. So quite a few women's teams to support.
Yeah, so we're going to have, UPSL Central Conferences came out with the initial 6, which will be FC Valkyries, which is going to be in the Killeen area. So I wonder if they're part of the Knights, or kind of along those lines. Atletico Katy, which, Samba and we're familiar with on the south side. Round Rock SC, Samba. Waco Soccer, which I haven't got confirmation if they're similar with Waco FC or not. I think looking at the logo, I don't believe they are. And then the Coyotes FC in Temple. So, to me, the one thing that kind of shows on here is, that Temple Killeen area seems to be a hotbed for, for the semi-pro
Mm-hmm.
soccer, because you've got four teams on on the men's side, and two to three, if you include Waco, three of them on the women's side, all in that Waco, Temple, Killeen area. So
Yep.
that's kind of outstanding, and I know John is working hard on trying to bring in a few more possibly, but those are the six that the original six that have been announced. And then, of course, with the Athenians, they have announced that they are going to be going to the UWS. And one thing that I thought was interesting is that they're going to partner with Cornerstone Christian. They're going to use a brand new 5,000 seat stadium training facilities known as Warrior Stadium, and I didn't look up where Warrior Stadium was, but I thought that was kind of neat. If it is they're going to have their own location as opposed to Blossom Stadium, where I think they played at Blossoms, right? The last time they played.
They did, yes. They practiced at Wimbledon, or not Wimbledon, Wembley High School over there in the medical center.
So,
I
thought that was kind of interesting that they've already got a place that's going to be separate from the other women's teams here.
Well,
I'm trying to see.
I tell you what I think is going to separate them a little bit too from the other women's teams is just knowing how Pete ran the organization previously when I was doing stuff there with Soy Saf and got to travel for a couple of away games and stuff like that. He's very professional and just just class. And as far as scheduling like the international friendlies against Tigres and that type of thing, I can definitely see where the Athenians there's probably going to be some news around more of some of those international type friendlies, and more so than just their league play like there was in the inaugural season when they played the WPSL. So I definitely think that that's one advantage, so to speak, if you want to call it that, or just difference, uniqueness that might come with the Athenians are some of those international friendlies and things like that.
Well, looking at if it's at Cornerstone Christian School, that's in off of 410 and Jackson Keller, Castle Hills area. So that's actually a pretty good location if you really stop to think about it, where it is on the northwest side of town, but you're not as far over as Toyota Field or Blossom. So if you are trying to attract, let's say, individuals from our side of town, which is more the northwest side, but also still the east side over there, to me, it looks like it's in a perfect location, where it's, off of 410, 410 area here, where, I think that'll be outstanding for them.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that Cornerstone church or school. I actually drive by there. Me and Sven used to live right over there off Jackson Keller and 410, so that is a kind of a convenient area of town. But speaking of, nice facilities, we got some additional information regarding the Soccer Central that we talked about here a couple weeks ago about the new $6.3 million soccer facility that's being built here in San Antonio. We kind of speculated on who's going to play there, and come to find out it's some pretty interesting news. Why don't you tell us, Harry?
Yeah, so like I said, it looks like Juventus is starting an academy there. It's not a whole lot of information came out. I still would be interested if they are willing to, let the runners or another team, share the facility with them. I think that would still be a great question for them. But, to me, having an academy, by Juventus, of course they're one of the, most famous clubs in the world. To me, outside of the comment in the press release, which I didn't particularly like, where, he said soccer is expensive. So that tells me that, that kind of feeds into the more, pay to play, but that's just how it's done nowadays. But
you can't build a $6.2 million stadium off volunteers, that's for sure.
But it was just one of those things I was like, where you'd like to see, So just having that comment in there, on there, just, like I said, it was like, just, and it's business, yeah. And that's there's no way around it, but in your initial lease, why you got to toss that in?
Yeah, why even mention it? Absolutely.
But I think it's a great opportunity. They said that there's going to be tryouts, so it'll be interesting to see what they do, and what exactly, I'm not really, a huge fan of teams over in Europe. How big are the academies? Is this as big a deal as it is, or is it just, and I don't, and this is no disrespect to them, is it kind of a money grab? Because whenever, I know when Austin came out, because I think they had a, was it I forget which one, Real Madrid or Barcelona.
Barcelona already has,
Barcelona opened one up at Coda, and some of the feedback was, hey, it's just a money grab to, yeah, you're going to get training, but you're really paying for that name, saying, hey, I attended, Barcelona, academy. How much of that is actually true? And, is it really worth, in your opinion, going to that type of a path?
I'm sure there's some truth to it. I feel like they're probably going to have to, prove a little bit. I mean, you already have the San Antonio FC Academy program, which is, a very honest, very prestigious opportunity. You've got clubs like Classic Elite, like Alamo City SC. I mean, it's not like you don't really have. It is a big name, and so it will be interesting, as you mentioned, to see, is that all it is? Is it just a name and just kind of a money grab to get people to sign up based upon the fact that it's Juventus? Only time will tell. But yeah, I doubt it's going to be cheap. That's for sure.
And having that facility here is not a bad thing, because it's not just the traditional soccer that we're talking about. They're talking about futsal. They're talking about beach soccer. So it's gonna be a benefit to San Antonio, and even probably beyond just San Antonio. The surrounding area. It's gonna be a benefit. It's gonna be another spot to put San Antonio on the map
when it comes to soccer.
So. Right. And I don't, and like I said, I don't mean that as a disrespect when in talking about, the pay to play portion. It's just for me personally where, it's, it's one of the sore subjects, we'll just say, in U.S. soccer right now for some of us.
For sure. And I would really like to discuss that further. I saw some interesting discussions going on Facebook, not attacks or anything like that, between some of the local coaches here. And, I'd love to kind of get the other side of that coin a little bit also, because, and it's a discussion for another day, but, I was thinking about that. It's kind of like sometimes you think about it, you think about the other side of that. And it's like, if I signed Delaney up for cheerleading or for gymnastics, you start to think about how expensive some of that stuff gets with the tournaments and the travel and, the monthly expenses and the uniforms and stuff like that. And I think it's real easy to talk about the pay to play without really specifying what it is specifically, like you kind of mentioned. Is it a money grab just over the name? That to me is more the issue with the pay to play type of stuff that you see than just, well, sometimes the training and it can be expensive, because any sport can get that way,
Well, yeah. And like I said, I don't mean that as a disrespect
right.
to Juventus or any of them here. It's just, it's one of those things that, there's already enough academy drama here in San Antonio, and you're basically adding to it, because you can't tell me some of the local academies are going to lose top kids to it just because of the name and the opportunity that it's going to give. And it's going to be a new facility, so it's going to have all the bells and whistles and be hopefully be state of the art, which is only going to help push the other academies.
Yep. Competition. That's what it's all about. And you've seen that a lot, in the semi-professional and the amateur here, both with men's and women's, kind of as you just mentioned. So competition's good. It's going to make, as you said, San Antonio is just even more of a hotbed for soccer here in Texas.
Speaking of academies, and I know we're kind of going to jump, I was going to do this last, but, since we've kind of transitioned the conversation into that, a couple of big stories have came out since we last were on with Academy San Antonio, players, Academy, and what I guess, he signed well, he hasn't signed a professional contract with Ethan Bryant, but he's part of the San Antonio FC with the EPT program, but signed to the first team. But first up, we had midfielder Leo Torres called up to the U.S. Youth National Under 15 camp. And then I think it broke today, right, that Ethan Bryant's been called up to the Under 18 men's national team. I think it's the first week in February that he'll be going. And I know with Mr. Torres that he was the only USL player called up, and I want to say the same thing with Ethan Bryant. So thoughts on really two huge and probably to me the most important news that we'll talk about here today is, San Antonio local talent, being groomed by, San Antonio FC and there's, academies underneath them that have helped build that up to be called to the national teams.
No, I think you just nailed it. As you mentioned, no matter what we're going to talk about today or anything this week, that's the most important thing right there, in my opinion as well. It's an amazing opportunity here for two youngsters to get that kind of experience. And when we talk about the academy program, it seems like that's what we always go back to, is just the different experiences that these kids are having. And, this is just the ultimate experience to be called up to play for your national team and represent San Antonio and represent San Antonio FC. It just kind of those people that, are MLS or bust, you're missing out on things like this right here, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to me, it's, as a San Antonio FC fan, I look at this and, before, I was always like, hey, who's going to be our attacking mid? And then today when I saw this, I was like, am I not giving Ethan enough credit for what he did last year? And we know with watching, Presley from the first year to the second year, from watching Maxi from the first year to the second year, that they take a jump. So to me, I'm wondering if maybe I've undersold, Ethan Bryant on what his role could be for San Antonio this year. And then I also kind of wonder, because Alphonso Davies, was playing USL. I want to say starting at age 15 or right near 15, 16. I'm wondering how soon before he gets the call up, because to me, if you're getting call up to the national team, at least in my opinion, that tells me you're one of the best in the country. So if you're one of the best in the country, you want to face the best competition. How soon is it before we start seeing, obviously we saw Bryant last year at I think he was 17 when he was called up. Mm-hmm. But with, Mr. Torres, is that something that, hey, maybe later on this year, especially like Open Cup as an example, that San Antonio brings him up to give him a shot? Is that something that you could possibly see?
I don't know. So for Bryant, I think it's a little bit different. For Torres, I think that's a different answer. I think he's still probably a little bit too young. And as
a year or two away.
You kind of mentioned too, just him having the opportunity already to play for the national team and stuff like that. Does he maybe pursue opportunities that he has presented to himself more around his own age group? Does he stay kind of with a younger crew, and he may get a call somewhere internationally or something like that before he ever comes, of an age to play in the USL. But sometimes I think with some of those younger kids, you almost worry a little bit about injury. Not that getting minutes in the USL wouldn't be advantageous for them, but throwing a 15-year-old kid out there, I'm sure San Antonio FC is going to be responsible with our youth and not do something that would, perhaps potentially injure them or set them back. Exactly. Yeah. God forbid if somebody were to get injured, playing in some Open Cup matches or something like that, trying to get them experience. But I think you said it right. I think you said that, are you maybe underestimating the impact that Ethan Bryant could have for San Antonio FC this season? And I think you might be. If you're not fully sold on how good this kid is, Bean and Cheese, Torres might go to a World Cup though, like U17, and that's why I say he may stick more with his age group. But for Ethan Bryant, I seeing him play last year, like you say, that this next year, how much better he's going to be. You saw the same thing, I think, a little bit with Devin Vega as well, and just kind of that first his first
that
minutes
maturity grows up,
maturity exactly. So I do think Ethan Bryant could be a real difference maker for the squad. I just, the only knock, and it is what it is, has been, his size a little bit. He gets bounced around a little, but he does make up for that with his touch. And so I could see him having a big impact on this team this year.
Yeah, well, and you talk about size, Preston Petrie, put out, the preseason roster, we'll just say.
Okay.
And one of the things that stuck out to me was that Ethan Bryant's 5'9", so he's my height. But he's $130. So I was telling AJ, I was like, basically I'm two Ethan Bryants, but I don't have any of the skills. So.
Minus the technical ability.
And the speed and all the other stuff. And obviously the hair. I don't got the hair. But I thought that was kind of classic. And then the other thing, because they're right next to each other, one of the things that stuck out to me is, Rafa was already able to drink by the time that Ethan was even born. So, if you really look at 16 and 18, there's a 21-year gap, which, if you're looking at it, I thought that was kind of,
the funny part about that is, them being right next to each other, that comparison. Yeah. The funny part is you see Rafa there at the San Antonio Rampage game, and you'd think he'd almost be the youngster, right? Based upon just kind of his personality, his energy. Yeah. But again, these youngsters are already proving the path to pro national teams in the area. Was there ever a similar example with the Scorpions? That's a great question, Harry. Can you think of anybody from the Scorpions that maybe eventually got like an international call-up of sorts or anything like that?
Oh, not off the top of my head. Because Billy was on the team, and he's had some call-ups.
But as a youngster, they didn't really have the academy stuff back then. So as far as the youth goes, that might be a tough comparison.
Well, they had an academy, but I think this is where San Antonio FC kind of reaps the rewards a little bit.
Okay.
From the Scorpions Academy is I don't ever remember, the Scorpions Academy being as recognized as San Antonio FC's. And a lot of that was just because it was getting started. It was trying to, but I also don't think it didn't, and I don't mean this in a negative way, it didn't cherry pick from the other academies, because I think when San Antonio FC started out, they said, hey, we want to work with the other academies. And, if memory serves me correct, they brought in, they had tryouts of, if you were with, Academy
Lone
A or
Star,
Academy B.
Yeah.
So they worked with them on to bring them in. But I don't think the Scorpions quite did it that way. So they weren't as developed, as far as with the talent that San Antonio is, because, San Antonio, if we're honest, they took the cream of the crop, from the local academies, and I know they still work with them and
develop them,
still help develop them. And, especially with the EPT program, they left those kids still over there and they bring them in for, I think it's 1 or 2 nights a week or, whatever the schedule is for that here. So I don't ever remember any of the Scorpions Academies youth doing it. And then of course how it was shut down, rubbed people, the wrong way quite a bit. But I don't think it's a comparison. I think San Antonio FC is just, and then it goes to, SS&E and just on how professional, and if they are going to do it, they're going to do it the right way. And I'm not saying that the Scorpions didn't, but, SS&E to me is a MLS level type of academy on how they're ran, with the professionalism, with the coaching, the facilities. I don't know, I've never been to an MLS team, to see what
I would say
facility.
The Dallas facility is kind of similar. That being up there, it's kind of similar as far as, not all the fields are that great there at Star, unfortunately, But it's a pretty nice, because I remember even talking to some of the academy players actually from FC Dallas when they came down here to play against SAFC Academy. This was last season, and they were pretty impressed with the facilities overall and stuff like that. So I would say it's on par with an MLS facility. I think that's a fair claim.
But to me, that's how because if you look at the standings, if you go to the Development Academy, website here, San Antonio is doing very well with their academy teams. Now there's some teams that are struggling more than others. Don't get me wrong, but as far as for being so young, I think they're setting a high bar. I know we talked about the Juventus Academy coming in. San Antonio FC has raised the bar as far as my concern on how the academies operate here in town. So, which is great for for the youth. Don't get me wrong, but as far as if you're looking at SAFC and the Scorpions, to me it's night and day. And to be fair, it's also a different time here in town as well, where I think because I heard there was major drama back in those years with the academies, and I'm sure there's still drama, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a little bit more working relationships between the academies from what I've heard. Now I'm not part of them or affiliated with them in any way, but just from what I've been told is that the relationships have improved from 4 or 5 years ago, which is a good thing. It's what needs to be done. But if you go to any I know I spoke with some of the St. Louligans, and they have academy drama over there, but St. Louis has been able to kind of take the lead on it, and I think San Antonio's kind of helped adopting doing that, and I think also working with the NYCFC in the past has kind of helped also geared that up with the connections that they have with what city with Man City and all the city teams. So I'm sure that's kind of helped guide them as well. But to me, it's a different level. What do you think?
Oh, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think that they've done a good job and everything. As you mentioned, that they do kind of set the standard just in terms of programs here in San Antonio and how well they can be run. And not that those main clubs are the only clubs here that are making a difference. You've got clubs over there on the south side that we know about, that are trying to help kids and with showcase tournaments. And sometimes you got to do it a little bit of a different way because you can't afford all the travel of the select leagues and everything else. So there's tons of clubs here in San Antonio, and I think that San Antonio FC Academy is obviously doing a great job of giving kids something to aspire to. And that these kids, that are playing for this academy team are doing a great job representing the city and building that brand for future generations already.
One person that we should reach out and to is James Hope on this. I know he's with the Crocketeers, as president, and he stepped down, but he does a lot of the academy work with kids that that he works with here. So that might be something. I know you have what was it? I forget the name that we were talking with at the Northside tournament.
Yeah, Rafa. Yeah.
I think it would be I think that might be a kind of a show idea, that maybe have James and Rafa on the line, because they can both talk about the academy side, outside of SAFC and just the environment and the growth. To me, the growth that San Antonio's had, within the last year 7, 8, of professional soccer, going back to the Scorpion years and with San Antonio FC. So
sure,
obviously there's a lot of growth that's took place and for that here. So and just to kind of I know there's a lot of stuff to cover. So since we've last spoke with here. There's been some player signing and
let's get into some roster news. Yeah, absolutely.
Which one would you like to start with?
Well, I tell you what, you kind of kicked it off there at the beginning of the episode with the one that I think at this point kind of surprised everybody with Billy Forbes.
Yes.
I think there was a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors from some different people, regarding Billy and him coming back. But, as you kind of mentioned, after we signed Lance Lang and made a couple more additions to the roster, it just kind of became a little bit more of a question of where does he fit in, in terms of a lineup goes. I never really had any animosity or anything like that towards Billy. I think he made a decision move to go out there to Phoenix and did what was best for him, and it'd be no different than, you or me in my job if another company came around and offered us more money to do the same job. And you got to learn a little bit from an all-star at whatever your profession was, as he kind of got to from a Drogba. But I think what happened too is, Billy was hot there for a while, and then everybody wants to dog him kind of because he started off on such a streak and then, didn't really, kind of fizzled out a little bit. But I feel like so much of our attack that season was geared specifically around Billy. And once teams figured out how to kind of shut Billy down, that was it, So, I mean, you can't put all that on Billy.
No, I think for me the reason why, and just kind of remembering, we kind of had a discussion, because there was rumors about, hey, I saw Billy here, he's house hunting, and and all the other. We're like, nah, this, because if you look at the roster, you've got Lance Lang, you got Jack Barmby, we brought back Walter Restrepo, so those are three wingers right there. If you're really looking at it here now, where they actually play, that might be a separate a discussion and something that we'll have to see what goes on with camp. But you bring back Billy Forbes. I think my only thing would be to kind of slow the roll of the fan base. Because if we really look at his year last year, it was disappointing, because he went into Phoenix with high expectations. I know he got hurt. I know there was a lot of talent in Phoenix, but, he just didn't, he just didn't perform there up to the expectation. And it was a high expectation because I remember when he went over to there was, hey, San Antonio was really going to be hurt. And I think in a way they were hurt, but we thought he was going to just pick right up with Phoenix because they are a high impact offensive team. And if you look at the numbers, he really didn't. He didn't have the season that I'm sure that he expected, and I'm sure that Phoenix expected here. So I think the good news for San Antonio is he's going to be coming back with a chip on his shoulder. Because he had that great season in 2017 where he was, all second, team honors, and like I said, he got off to such a hot start. But I also think he's going to have to work his way back in as well. And my question is, do you pencil him as a starter opposite of Lang, or where do you kind of see him fitting?
I'd like to see him opposite of Lang. I think if he can play, I'm not too familiar with either of their histories as players and all the different positions that they've been asked to play. And we know from last season that Darren Powell's not afraid to move a player out of a position that they're traditionally in. But I would love to see Lance and Billy out there at the same time. I think those two working together could be dangerous. And as we've kind of said before, I feel like this team is just being designed more and more to be attacking. And I think having Lance out there and his speed and a player like Billy with his technical ability and footwork, and I mean, Billy's dangerous in the box. And you said it best, kind of what you've got here is a Gordon that can finish, hopefully, right?
Well, I think both of them can, because I think with Billy, he also assisted quite a bit. And I think that was the thing, with, on the San Antonio FC, if you do the, 2019 roster breakdown, they mentioned that he also recorded 9 assists, which is currently a club record. And, Lance Lang was hot on the tail of that here. So to me, where you got Lang and Forbes, if they're both starting, both of them have showed, where they can pass, where they can cross it in. And then, where we got, hopefully the with Guzman and Bruce and what's the other gentleman name? Barraza. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. The striker that's
we signed
joined us from Atlas. To me, I think, and to me, I saw I want to say it was one of the interviews from when camp first opened up here. It sounds like they're going to be more attacking this year. This year compared to especially compared to last year. And I know me and Royce has kind of gone back and forth on exactly. Are they going to go back kind of the 2016 model where set back and then counterattack, or if they're going to be more open to it? But since we last signed here, because there's a couple other key players that we signed. So Ethan Bryant came back officially, and I know we kind of discussed him earlier. To me, they signed Jonathan Viscosi, which is a Canadian. He came over from Finland, where he was the 2017 Jokic goalkeeper of the year, leading TPS to promotion to the first division. And over there, he's got 25 clean sheets and 70 appearances. So what I get from there is it gives competition to Matt Cardoni. And I'm wondering, I actually wonder if he would, I know Matt's got the time here. He's a fan favorite, but that's a lot of, that's a lot of experience that's coming in. And I know that's kind of the Diego replacement, for that here. So I was kind of excited about that. Goaltending, your thoughts on, having Jonathan with Matt? Anyone, you still give Matt the favorite to start, or?
I think it's probably, man, this year, I think we've heard it from Tim Holt. They're going to put the best players out there, regardless of kind of fan favorite and stuff like that, I feel like. Obviously, Matt, you would think would be the starting goaltender. But, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that is dependent upon what happens there in preseason. I mean, if preseason starts and Matt's in there and he's getting scored on and this guy comes out and looks good, I don't think that it's a guaranteed position for any of these guys this season.
What I liked about him is that he's got height. So Matt's 6'3", and it's not a slide against Diego, but I think he was less than 6 foot, where Jonathan is 6'2". He's not as thick as Matt, but he is he's a couple years older. For that here. So, to me, I like that veteran, experience coming in, even though it's not, with, in USL for that here. But I know when I initially did my 18, that I put out, a couple of people are like, hey, why are you putting him in over Cardoni?
I thought that was interesting.
I just think I love Matt, and I think he does a lot of good, but as we saw last year, and I know Diego was goalkeeper of the year, and very similar, with this guy in 2017. I just think, if he's taller, depending on the level that the Finnish league is, to me, that's competition that, I think, maybe above what USL offers, and that'll be, I guess, what we'll be kind of debating.
That's what we'll see. Yeah.
Absolutely. So next here, hold on, let me get back to there. Next is a couple of youngsters. Johnny Fenwick played at High Point. Was very decorated through there. He's a defender. What I like about him is that he can play the fullback and the center back, is my understanding. And I'll let you do Leroy's last name because I don't want to chop it up, and I know I'll chop it up. But Leroy
Magarouche,
comes to us from North Carolina, Greensboro. For that here, he looks to be more on the attacking midfielder side, where he has 13 goals, 14 assists in 75 matches, and he also has time with the Seattle Sounders U23 team, so he's got some exposure to the at least to an MLS type talent. So both of those are going to be probably on the youngsters. Probably I don't know if any of them would be starters, although Fenwick kind of interests me just for the fact as far as for Cochran's role. I don't know if there is there's not a set person that you can say, hey, that's going to be filling in for Cochran. As far as on the roster, looking at the roster, there is only 5 defenders with Pascal Bossi, Yarrow, Didrik, Fenwick, and Kai Green. Kai Green we expect would be the right fullback. Yarrow and Didrik and Ibusi would be the center backs. So that kind of, to me still leaves open the left back position through that it's still open. And to me, probably the one that I think is going to be most important for this here and is Michael Lahoud, who comes to us from FCC Cincinnati. Last year, he had 24 appearances, helping them to the best record in the league last year. He's 32 years old. He's got over 200 professional appearances. So to me, he's our. It wouldn't shock me if he's going to be our captain for it here. I expect him and Pekka to be that back line, that Michael Reed role. I think he's going to be, as far as the key of the midfield going forward, where Mikey Lopez was a little bit more all over the place last year, in for out here. I think Michael is going to from all the reports from Cincinnati, he's a hell of a community guy, and he got replaced towards the end of the season, and some feel that might have been why Cincinnati didn't continue in the playoffs, is because they missed his leadership on the field. So to me, he's the one that, as far as on the list here, that I'm kind of most excited for, because I think he gives us that leadership that we missed when Captain Reed departed for Nashville last year. So your thoughts on the signings that have came in recently?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm getting fired up. I think, still the one person that everybody's kind of curious about is Maxi. Obviously, no word on him yet, which I feel like unless they're just really saving that for something, some type of
coming back.
He's not coming back. Yeah, you'd think.
He's not coming back.
Yeah. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, that was kind of the one guy, I guess, that was really left that I was kind of excited about. Other players that haven't really been mentioned.
That was more just because he's local, right? That was more because he's a San Antonio guy, or I'm not a fan of Max. I'm not going to lie to you.
And I know you've said that before, and I get your reasonings behind of it. He was hot or cold to me. I think he had his moments where he played really well, and then I think he had his moments where he didn't play good at all. So it was like either one or the other. There was no in between really. I wouldn't say that I didn't like Maxi, but I can get where you would have frustrations with him as a player and not want him back. I mean, I can see that.
Yeah, it's not that I didn't like him, because he's a great guy personally, and I think he's just in looking at the social media aspects, he's a hell of a locker room guy, which I think is key. But when I went to the Crocketeers annual meeting here, and I think as far as returning players, I don't know if we're going to see any more. Just from from the information that we got, it sounds like that. If you were on SAFC formally, now of course this could change at any time with injuries and other stuff here. But I don't anticipate him back. And I think I saw on Twitter that somebody mentioned that they saw that he is going to sign with somewhere else. Now of course that's not official, it wasn't announced or anything like that, so I don't think Maxi's coming back. The one I'm kind of waiting on to see is Presley, because I thought he did have some talent. I'm kind of shocked that Austin hasn't signed him, and I know they're already at 20 plus on the roster, and we're at 19. So I'm kind of interested to see where he falls, because he does have some talent for that here. So from my understanding and just with what I've heard here, I wouldn't expect either one of them back, but of course injuries and other things could change that going forward.
Yeah, no, we'll just have to wait and see. But obviously, a lot of signings, which was definitely needed to kind of give us a better idea. But yeah, looking at the roster now and just kind of seeing all the pieces in place, I think fans should be excited about the upcoming season.
I think they should. Yeah, and to me, and I know we mostly focus on San Antonio FC. But if you look at USL as a whole, as far as for the championship side,
Mhm.
to me, the West is going to have a lot of good teams in it, but the East is going to be, where you're going to see, kind of the super teams. It seems like, Indy, Nashville, Ottawa's kind of getting in that discussion now with some of the signings that they have. So I think out West here, I think you're seeing quality signings, but you're not seeing the name signings like you're seeing over in the East. For that here. So it'll be a dogfight, as we know here. I think San Antonio on paper, looking at it again, has a top 4 team, but we said that last year and we missed the playoffs. So
it's interesting you say that. I was going to say we got another question here on YouTube, and I feel like this is the perfect thing kind of to wrap it up with or whatever. And it's what you're just getting into. Question is, what would a successful season mean to you?
Oh, it has to be playoffs.
It has to be playoffs.
It has to be playoffs.
You said top 4. You said top 4 finish though in the conference.
I think they should be. But when you
I think so too.
The resources, when you look at the team, if San Antonio is not top 4, to me, that's a disappointment.
I agree,
because one of the things that struck me with, when Mr. Holt, visited us was it wasn't, they were disappointed in last year's team. Mm-hmm. And I followed San Antonio soccer since going back when it started with the Scorpions, and they'd have a really good year one year, and then the next year they'd fall to the bottom, and they would have a really good year the following year, and it was a yo-yo. Mm-hmm. And I think last year and I think you can kind of see it in some of the feedback that you get from them is 2016 they had such a great year. They got off to such a hot start. They had Igabaga go up to MLS. They brought back the majority of the team, and but they lost some key pieces. But I know they thought that they replaced them on paper, mm-hmm. but they really didn't. And I think them finishing 9th again, and I think with Todd and Jose, you and I, April, May of last year, we were like, hey, something's off on this team. You could just tell. And it stood that way for the whole season. The team never did gel, on the field and, who knows off the field, because, of course, we're not part of that. But there was something missing on that. Now, in the videos that you see, and I know they're, it's fluff pieces, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. You see that. To me, it seems like a more excited team, a more focused team, and I think that's going to be and like I said here, I'm personally excited to see hey, are they going to be kind of sitting back in counter, or are they actually going to open it up? Where last year, last year there was no clear definition of what style, what team, who the starting 11 was. I think this year you're going to have a clear starting 11. There might be some variable pieces in it, don't get me wrong. But when you look at the roster here, I think you can kind of piece together, hey, most of that starting 11, and you got some key backups. Where last year, you couldn't say that even during, halfway through the season.
Right. No, and I think that was the biggest frustrating piece. So, yeah, to me, I think a successful season this year would be a top 4 finish. Obviously, winning a couple games in the playoffs. Hell, maybe even like the conference championship, making it there to the Western Conference Championship. I mean, I would say that's a successful season if we lost in the semifinals this year.
I think you got to be top 4.
Top 4?
I think you got to be top 4. When it comes to the playoffs, it's a one game. as we saw 2 years ago against Oklahoma City.
And see, I think we were the better team in that match, though. I think we should have beat Oklahoma City, and that's why I say
we were unlucky. It went to PKs, and we were a poor team when
we were.
To PKs, went to PKs. You knew we were in trouble.
Done.
You knew it was just based on the history of that team, and to me that's where that's where we're 10 days away for some of us if you're going up to Dallas.
Yes, sir.
I know Saturday they play against UIW, and then they head up for their quote only away trip for that, which I'm kind of excited because I'm going to be heading up there.
I think I may be doing the same.
So, well, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So, well, this has been fun, man. Like we said, we had a lot of different subjects we wanted to cover tonight, so we were just kind of trying to keep it moving through everything. Sorry we missed last week. It's going to be a little hectic the next few weeks for my schedule, just on Mondays and Tuesdays, so we'll probably be doing Wednesday night shows here for the next few weeks, but we're going to get back to Tuesday at 8 p.m. kind of now throughout the season. I think we had decided upon, so that way the show will be the same time every week. We won't have any issues or anything like that. So it will be Tuesdays at 8 p.m., but for the next few weeks, it's going to be Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. So, gracias. Thank you for watching. Harry, any final thoughts?
No, the final thoughts, a couple of things here. Bernie sent out, if you want to be a referee, they're offering a camp if you go into Birdie Thunder, and I forget their exact Twitter. But if you type in Bernie, Thunder Bernie, you should be able to get information on it. And like I said here, I sent out a tweet if you follow me at RAMINCOL. Like I said here. And then, of course, Innocentes, if you have a couple of bucks to pitch in, if you follow UPSL Soccer, I think it would be awesome to see the UPSL Central Conference be able to say, hey, we were the national champs as far as for UPSL. So good luck to the Innocentes, and like I said here, I know the rest of the conference, and of course you'll be able to watch that on My Cujo. And I'll submit that out as far as when we get closer to that, for that year. So, but for me, like I said, at this point, that's it where I have. One last thing here. I know San Antonio sent out, they're having a networking thing there. If you're a season ticket member, or if you have a business. So if you have questions on that, send me an email. And like I said here, I can forward you that information. But I know that came out this afternoon. If you're a business and you want to network with other season ticket members or San Antonio FC, and I'm assuming SSNE side there, so that is something that came out. I want to say that was February 6th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Don't hold me on the date here, but there was an email that just came out to season ticket members on that.
Awesome. Well, no, one thing I just wanted to mention again is the Ian's Foundation. I am posting the link for that there in our YouTube chatter right now. They are still obviously raising money. We'll have them on hopefully for our next episode because that game will be coming up here soon as well. So, but other than that, man, that's all I got. As always, thank you, Harry. It's been fun. This is the San Antonio Soccer Roundtable. We out.
Bro.